was that time again. Episode 7 of American Horror Story Cult just aired. This one's titled Valerie Solanas Died for Your Sins, Scumbag. Let's get into it. Taking a cue from real-life events, this episode opens up on June 3rd, 1968 and introduces Lena Dunham as Valerie Solanas. She's pissed at Andy Warhol, who's played by Evan Peters here, because he disrespects her work, and he tells her that women can be beautiful but not serious artists. As we see it, that encounter drives her to grab a gun and shoot him, but there's actually much more to her story than that. But before we get there, jumping to the present, we get news coverage of the shooting at Kai's rally, and much to my surprise, Allie isn't caught completely red-handed and assumed to be solely responsible for the whole thing. Someone filmed Meadow firing the gun with a cell phone camera, but Allie was still taken in as a possible suspect. The whole thing gave Kai a nice boost at the poll, and now he's won the city council seat, but someone's on to him, and Beverly gets a little visit from an American Horror Story veteran, Frances Conroy. But before they get into her story, Beverly goes to Kai's house, which is swarming with what Kai calls volunteers who look a whole lot like cookie-cutter lackeys, or rather a growing cult for Kai. Kai insists that now is the time to make do on his promise for law and order, but Beverly wants to continue with the plan to set the world on fire and, perhaps even more importantly, to share equal power with Kai as promised. So yeah, I had a feeling that was going to come back into play, and it does in this episode big time. That conversation winds up being the nudge that Beverly needs to follow up with Frances Conroy's character, who we find out is Bebe Babbitt. At the restaurant, Ivy and Winter are busy chit-chatting about Kai's No Girls Allowed meeting, further highlighting the theme of gender inequality this episode. Mere seconds later, their girls' night grows by 2, adding Beverly, who brings Bebe along with her, and that's when Bebe reveals who she really is. Valerie Solanas was once the love of her life, and Bebe tells them all about Valerie's group and their plan to destroy all men, a plan that also extends to the women that wanted to be with them. And that's where we get our first especially disturbing scene of the episode, when Valerie's followers gun down an innocent couple who are revealed to be the first victims of the Zodiac Killer. And no, American Horror Story doesn't just link that one single murder to Valerie's group. Bebe declares, "We were the Zodiac." Apparently, the shooting of Andy Warhol was Valerie's signal to her group, Scum, the Society for Cutting Up Men, to start killing. While she's locked away for that shooting, they kill on behalf of Scum, and everything's going according to plan until someone else takes credit for their work, someone calling themselves the Zodiac. After she gets out of jail and reunites with the group, Valerie manages to sniff out the male member of Scum who was responsible for taking the credit as Zodiac, and in yet another super disturbing and vicious scene, the ladies of Scum stab this poor guy over and over and then make a display of his remains. After that, Valerie attempts to take credit for the Zodiac killings, but the cop doesn't buy it at all, and then Valerie just loses it. Her final breakdown of the episode brings back Andy Warhol, or rather a vision of him, and it's concluded that shooting him is the only thing she'll ever be remembered for. Bebe wraps up by telling Ivy, Winter, and Beverly that Valerie was all used up, just like Meadow, and just like all of them will be if they continue to let themselves be manipulated and used. So that's when Beverly declares they need to strike back, and this time they're not gonna miss. Back at home, Winter visits her parents' room and finds Kai inside, proving he was telling Beverly at least a degree of the truth that time. Kai whips out the Scum Manifesto, and I was sure he was going to use it to question Winter's allegiance, but instead he tells her he finds it fascinating and inspiring, and that his next step needs to be getting a philosophy, a mission statement, or a catchy name like Scum. Maybe Fear is Truth, or as Kai says Harrison suggested, MLWB, which stands for Men Lead, Women Bleed. Turns out we don't have to wait until next week to see the ladies retaliate, because in the next scene they lure Harrison into the restaurant, and just before killing him, they get him to admit that he knew about the plan for Meadow. Immediately after that, we get Beverly reporting on the body discovery, stating that Harrison's body was covered in the film of Scum. That would have been a great strong dig to close out this episode, but then we get one more scene with Kai watching that report, surprisingly calm. He turns to someone next to him and asks, "They're at their best when they're angry, don't you think?" To which BB replies, "Aren't we all?" There is a lot to consider with this episode, but before we start picking apart the details, overall, this felt like the twist or pivot we come to expect from American Horror Story about midway through a season, and I like how they did it here. It wasn't some big reveal that came out of nowhere, but rather a scenario that connects to what happened in the previous episode, uses a standalone story to shed new light on the present, and then it paves the way to a future that I never really saw coming. I did suspect we'd wind up with a major rift between Beverly and Kai, just not quite like this. First off, I didn't see the men versus women angle coming. At first I was a little afraid the show was approaching that in a very heavy-handed way, kind of reminiscent of how it approaches the election in episode 1 of the season, but the deeper we got into Valerie's story, the more you're able to compare her behavior to our main characters, and specifically to Kai. Valerie wanted equality for women, but went about it in the worst possible way, just like how Kai goes about achieving his goals. This narrative choice also highlights the similarities between Kai's cult and Scum, and how the members can be manipulated into committing atrocious crimes, but then also how a group can lose its way. Valerie lost it, and then she lost her followers. Given that reveal at the end of the episode, maybe BB still holds on to that and looks at Kai as some sort of replacement figure. But I'm also keeping in mind that the Scum agenda might be her top priority, and that there's a chance she could try to overthrow Kai. And I've also got to wonder, what are Kai's intentions now? I actually don't think he's really trying to divide the group. It might be some roundabout, highly manipulative way to further his own agenda, as we've seen him do in past episodes. This is just speculation here, but what if he was being honest when he told Beverly that he wants law and order right now? Just maybe his version of that isn't quite fair or right, and with that thought, my mind drifts in a Handmaid's Tale direction. As for the rest of the group, I'm curious to see how things shake out between Kai and Winter, and how much he truly does value the fact that they're family. And as for Ivy, yeah, chopping up Harrison was the last straw. She's absolutely not redeemable for me now. And just to touch on performance briefly before wrapping this up, that was some very fine work from Lena Dunham. She really lost herself in that character and hit some pretty chilling levels. So those are my thoughts on this episode of American Horror Story called But Now It Is Your Turn. Did you see this episode? Sound off in the comments below. And you know what? I want you all to join me in sending some Patreon love to Jimmy. Jimmy just joined the Nemi on Patreon campaign this month, and I am beyond thrilled to have him part of the community. Thanks so much for the support, Jimmy. And thanks to everyone else for watching, liking, and sharing my videos. I cannot wait until next week for another episode of American Horror Story Cult. I'm so psyched. I will see you soon for that and so much more.